We've been talking about real estate and how you develop life science real estate, what are the criteria and the characteristics and all of that. And I think we've had some great discussions. So now we're going to shift gears to the life sciences. And we're going to have a series of panels on life science companies, both emerging technologies, more mature companies. But we're going to kick it off because we're really re-envisioning New York using biology today. And so I invited a dear friend of mine to give a visioning process for us. So it's a tremendous pleasure to introduce the eternally gracious Grimanesa Amorós, an interdisciplinary artist with diverse interests in the fields of social history, scientific research, and critical theory. Born in Lima, Peru, Grimanesa has drawn upon the various cultural legacies of her country as inspiration for her large-scale, light-based installations, which she has presented around the globe, from Mexico to Tel Aviv and Beijing to New York's Times Square. In 2014, Grimanesa was a guest speaker at TED Global, and she is a recipient of the NEA Visual Artist Fellowship, the NEA Artist Travel Grant, and has the distinction of being part of the Art in Embassies program of the U.S. Her latest piece, Hedera, did I pronounce that right, is a magnificent lighting sculpture installation located in Prospect Park by the Bandshell, and it's my sincere wish that you all go out and see and experience the piece. So please join me in a sincere welcome for Grimanesa. I left a stool for you.
Thank you, Life and Sciences, for this opportunity, to Nancy and her team that with so much precision has been able for all of us to be enjoying all these panels and the speakers. Also, most important, for all of you for sharing with me your precious time. So many years ago, I took an unforgettable trip to Iceland when I had the opportunity to see the Northern Lights. Many of us know it as the Aurora Borealis. And this left me in such an awe that immediately I thought, wouldn't it be amazing if I could share the mystery and the magic of light with others? Of course, it took me many years to find a structure in which you actually could share the ephemeral part of light. And it's for that reason that light became actually my main material for the rest of my work through the consecutive years. I also like to say that for me, each project that I do is like a little microorganism in which the space, just matter if it's out in the environment or in the architecture, it truly mandates each step of the installation. And it is only when I finish the whole process of the project when I will make then the lighting sequence specifically for that project. In addition, I want to share with you a lot of my inspiration comes from my own cultural heritage from Peru, and which starts with a trip that I had in Lake Titicaca, which is at the southeast of Peru. On this video, I wanted to share how on my trip to these sleds, which they are made by they're made by the Uros Island, which lived there for over 3,000 years, and they make all these floating sleds all out of these totora reeds, these are giant plant stalks, which they dry them, and they make everything, starting with their houses, their boats, the watchtower, and including they eat it. And I was also fascinated with the ephemeral existence of it, because the Uros, if they don't maintain it on a daily basis, actually the islands will rotten and they will cease to exist. Upon my coming back from the trip to the Uros Island, I came to the opportunity a couple of days to make a project for Times Square. And I thought it was a great idea to bring our Uros house all the way to the middle of Times Square, and in a very technological way, of course. I thought it was an interesting parallel between the organicity of the shape of the piece, as you could all see, with the verticality of the architecture. I'm also going to show a little behind the scenes as to how a project from the start, for some of you that might be curious, get started. Because here it's too big and doesn't come out for the door. Working with Times Square has a lot of challenges, of course. You have to have in consideration the 150 miles per hour. So you have to add a lot of weight to the structure of the sculpture. It's being built into parts because when it goes in the flat truck, they have to make sure that they're not going to hit every single light until they get to the Times Square. You have to be very well prepared because you only have 5 hours from 1 o'clock to 5 o'clock in the morning. In Oro's house was the first time that actually the piece will also be illuminated through all the outside of the piece, because what happened is that it will get the seal screen on each of the domes is reflected. So they will go and have the ever-changing of all the LCD screens around Times Square that they use in advertisement. And from that case, it will come and start changing constantly as well. You see a lot of cars because I actually thought it was a great idea, but people would take it with little knives, a little bit of the domes as souvenirs. So Times Square thought it was a good idea to put some extra cars. So the next piece is Huanchaco, and it comes from a northern village on Peru, which is very interesting because here, as you could see, I will see the same tutorial reeds, but this time we're very, very, very much taller and swinging in the wind. So I thought, Grimanesa, wouldn't it be a good idea to take the seal screen from the previous projects that you have done and make it three-dimensional, like that you see in all these examples. So I took the same reed that it was in two different parts of the country, one in the north and one in the south, but because of the response to the environment, we're actually growing in a different sizes. Right after I came back from this trip, I had the opportunity to collaborate and make a collaboration with a developer, very well known here in the city, with owns a lot of properties, especially also in the financial center. This piece particularly is in Maiden Lane. And so I thought that it was interesting. How will I make all of the, us New Yorkers, grab their attention and make them forget a little bit of the phones that you usually are taking constantly pictures, tweeting and texting, and become my viewers. So with Maiden Lane, the title is Breathless, because what happened was communication with the architecture, the facade, and the front of the piece, as you see, and also the interior. So every project has a lot of communication with the architecture that surrounds it, the viewer, and the piece itself. This is only 30 seconds of a lighting sequence that usually it varies between 7 minutes to about 20 seconds, 20 minutes, depending on the project. I often like to compare that for me to create a lighting sequence is basically a comparison like composing music, which each of the LED lines that you see on the screen becomes like instruments. And the final piece I'm going to be sharing with you was creating to honor all the inspiring women I have met in my life. And the title is Pink Lotus. It was to create a dialogue with both the existing architecture of the landmark facade of the Peninsula Hotel by drawing attention to the Roman goddesses of Diana and Ceres, you know, who are next to this Palladium window that you see it on the picture. The first time I saw a pink lotus was in Shanghai, and it truly mesmerized it because of its beauty, shape, and movement. And I thought that this idea of balance, a spiritual principle, anchored in my work, and it was the determining factor for my perspective and perception of nature and landscape between the present and actively now. I also like to share a couple of seconds of this about 7-minute sequence. I also like to share that I live my life very actively engaged of all my surroundings, and that always makes me to be focused, to keep myself always open, to keep on learning things. And at the same time, I think that the major source of my inspiration is all of us human beings, and that's my eternal inspiration. And with that, I think that I am on time in case you have a couple of questions, because this is just a little scratch and sharing, you know, what I will do. So thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it. If there's a minute for any questions. I don't know if you have any questions. Yes, that's we actually just finished about last week, and I invite you, all of you, to go. The ones that actually could be living in Brooklyn, it's at the Prospect Park on 9th Street by the Bandshell, and that project was very interesting. The name is Hedera, and Hedera was inspired on the architecture of the Bandshell that has been there in existence since 1979, where they create actually all of the festivals. It's called Brooklyn Celebrates. Brick Celebrates Brooklyn, and what happened is that it is truly inclusion of the viewer, the nature of around the park. That's where the title comes, and then the architecture of the shape of the piece is based on the Bandshell. So what happened is that there is the Hedera is an ivy that it grows all across Prospect Park and in different kinds as well. So in the statement and on the press releases, of course, I mentioned the curator that I really didn't want to mention what Hedera means, because this way there starts the mystery about the viewer to try to find it out what it was, what it meant. So please, I invite you, all of you, the ones especially that might live very close. Thank you so much.